The Rise of Mandhathu, Lanka's Forgotten Genius. Chapter 18. The Fracture Below. The winds over Lanka had changed. They no longer carried the scent of sandalwood and sea salt, but the sharp bite of tension, the kind that settles before a storm. In the upper towers of the palace, Mandhathu stood still, his gaze fixed on the horizon where dark clouds stirred. The relic embedded in his gauntlet pulsed in irregular waves, reacting not to power, but to unrest. "Something is shifting," Suryani murmured from beside him. "It's not just the people, it's the land." Mandhathu nodded. "And it's coming from below." That night he descended alone, into the labyrinth of catacombs that snaked beneath the palace foundations. These tunnels, older than Ravana's reign, were once used by sages and spies. Now they were forgotten, or so the kingdom believed. Torch in hand, Mandhathu followed the pull of the relic. It thrummed louder the deeper he went, like a compass drawn to something hidden or buried. Then voices, low, chanting. The language was ancient, older even than the scrolls of Vaithara. He crept forward and peered through a broken stone wall. A gathering of robed figures stood in a circle, surrounding a device unlike anything he had seen. Obsidian coils, blood metal spokes, and at its core, a shard of something that flickered like the axis, but darker. At their center stood a familiar figure, face half covered, voice like a hissed secret, Viramitra. He was alive, and not just alive, commanding. "We cannot wait for the king's decay or the boy's doubt," Viramitra intoned. "The axis has already begun to unravel time's order. The relic chose him, yes, but he is weak. His soul clings to Ravana's myths of balance. He will not act." A chorus of voices responded, "Then we must." Mandhathu gritted his teeth. He stepped back, but the relic pulsed, too loudly. One of the acolytes turned. "Someone is here." Mandhathu ran, up winding stairs, through half-collapsed tunnels, until he emerged, gasping, into the palace garden. Nimya and Colin were already waiting. "You saw him, didn't you?" Colin asked. "Yes," Mandhathu said. "He's building something, using a fragment of the axis." Nimya's expression turned grave. "Then the fracture has already begun." The next day, at a clandestine meeting in one of Ravana's private study halls, Mandhathu addressed trusted members of the council, only half of whom had not already turned their allegiance. "You all know what I saw beyond the axis," he said. "But what matters now is not vision, it's choice. Viramitra lives, and he has followers within these very walls." Murmurs erupted. General Partha stepped forward. "These are dangerous accusations." "They're truths," Mandhathu replied calmly. "And unless we act together, not with brute force but clarity, this kingdom will tear itself apart from the inside." Another voice, softer but clear. "And what if we don't believe you anymore, Mandhathu?" It was Councillor Devena, once an ally, now emboldened by fear. "Ever since you returned," she said, "you've walked in shadows. Your relic hums like a god's curse. How do we know it's not guiding you toward ruin?" Mandhathu's eyes narrowed. "Because if it were, you would already be ash." Silence. Then, enough. Ravana entered, clad not in royal robes, but in meditation silks. No crown, no guards, just presence. "The kingdom falters not from Mandhathu's change," he said, voice calm as a still sea, "but from our refusal to adapt. Those who fear change feed the very chaos they claim to resist." He turned to Mandhathu. "Gather those you trust, find this device Viramitra builds, and destroy it." Later that evening, in the moonlit halls of the Forge Tower, Nimya approached Mandhathu holding a scroll. "This was intercepted from one of the lower couriers," she said. He unrolled it. A map, not of the palace, but under it. Specific chambers, energy flow paths, notes scribbled in a code only a handful could decipher. "This was drawn by someone with access to the Axis schematics," he muttered. Colin walked in, fuming. "Then someone close to you is feeding Viramitra." Mandhathu paused. "Not just someone close, someone trained in Axis harmonics." Realization struck them all. The betrayal was not just political, it was personal. That night Mandhathu returned to the temple of Vaithara, not to seek answers, but to speak with the Axis itself. He placed his gauntlet against the core stone. The relic synced and his mind was thrown again into the spiral of visions. But this time he saw differently. Not futures, not chaos, but connections between choices and outcomes. Paths where Ravana fell, paths where he fell, paths where Lanka survived, only if he walked away from everything. But one vision burned brighter than the rest, him alone, not with an army, not with a throne, but leading a new generation, forging a new balance from ruin. He opened his eyes. I know what I must do. As dawn broke over the fractured capital, Mandhathu stood atop the outer walls, flanked by Nimya, Kalin, and Suryani. Below, soldiers trained. Citizens watched. Whispers moved like wind. He raised his voice. Lanka is not a throne. It is not a relic. It is us. And if we fall to fear, if we give our future to ghosts, then we are already conquered. He held out his gauntlet. The relic pulsed, but this time it sang. A new song, a call to those who still believed. Below, fists raised, a resistance was born, but far beneath in the deepest tunnels, Viramitra smiled. The fracture begins. To be continued.